Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Medina was not always a city of peace. Before battles were fought, before swords were raised, the real struggle was quieter. It was fought in treaties, in markets, in closed-door negotiations. Because after Badr, Medina changed. The Muslims had won a victory no one expected, and suddenly every alliance mattered. Every promise carried weight. Every betrayal carried consequences. Among those watching closely were three powerful tribes: Banu Qaynuqa, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qurayzah. This is not just a story of conflict. It is a story of leadership, law, and how the Prophet ﷺ governed a city where peace depended on trust. Medina after Badr. The mornings of Medina were calm, bread baking, gardens being watered, children running through narrow streets. But beneath that calm was tension. The Muslim community was growing stronger spiritually, politically, socially. Victory at Badr had shifted the balance of power. Yet the Prophet ﷺ understood something critical. Victory on the battlefield means nothing if a city collapses from within. That is why, from the earliest days, Medina was governed by law, not impulse. The Constitution of Madinah bound Muslims and non-Muslims together, guaranteeing religious freedom, mutual defense, and justice. Ibn Ishaq records that the Prophet ﷺ repeatedly reminded all communities, treaties are sacred, justice is non-negotiable, betrayal has consequences. Banu Qaynuqa, power in the market. At the heart of Medina stood the marketplace. This was the domain of Banu Qaynuqa. Goldsmiths shaping metal, traders calling out prices, news traveling faster than coins. Markets are never just about trade. They shape public mood, alliances, and power. Tensions began here. Disputes, provocations, social pressure. Yet the Prophet ﷺ did not respond with force. Ibn Hisham records that he personally addressed their leaders not with threats, but with reminders of the treaty they had agreed upon. Justice was enforced openly. Scales checked, fraud corrected, rights protected. Ibn Sa'd notes that this fairness did something powerful. It legitimized Muslim leadership even in the eyes of non-Muslims. Authority, the companions learned, does not come from fear. It comes from moral consistency. Banu Nadir, wealth, whispers, and warning signs. Outside the city lived Banu Nadir. Their homes were fortified, their lands fertile, their influence significant. But rumors began to spread. Secret correspondence, quiet alliances with Quraysh. The Prophet ﷺ did not rush to punish. Instead, he opened dialogue. Ibn Kathir narrates that envoys were sent reminding them, the treaty protects you, but the treaty also binds you. This was leadership at its highest level, firm without cruelty, patient without weakness. The companions noticed. Abu Bakr saw restraint guided by principle. Ali saw spiritual law merged seamlessly with political wisdom. Eventually, when threats persisted, relocation became necessary. Families were allowed to leave with their possessions. No bloodshed, no collective punishment. Justice was preserved even in enforcement. Banu Qurayzah, fortresses and strategic balance. To the south stood Banu Qurayzah. Their fortresses controlled water routes and security corridors. Their neutrality mattered. The Prophet ﷺ met them repeatedly. Ibn Ishaq records these meetings as calm, deliberate, measured. No intimidation, no provocation. Because sometimes patience is strategy. The companions learned something crucial here. Not every threat requires immediate action. Sometimes restraint itself preserves peace. Governing a city, not just a community. Medina was becoming a state. markets were supervised, travelers protected, water access regulated, trade monitored. Ibn Sa'd records that even small injustices were corrected. Why? Because Islam was not being taught only from the minbar, it was being modeled in daily life. People trusted leadership because leadership was accountable. Quranic foundation of leadership. Allah reminds the believers, they ask you about the spoils of war. Say, they belong to Allah and the Messenger. So fear Allah and make peace among yourselves. Surah Al-Anfal 8:1. Ibn Kathir explains, victory is meaningless without unity. Power is dangerous without ethics. Every decision the Prophet ﷺ made was anchored in revelation. Faith and governance were never separate. Regional impact and lasting lessons. Other tribes were watching. Quraysh was watching, and what they saw was unusual. A city ruled by law, not ego, by mercy, not chaos, by justice, not revenge. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu later reflected, true authority bends hearts before it breaks resistance. Ali radiallahu anhu understood, faith-guided leadership outlives military victories. Why this still matters. The story of the Jewish tribes of Madinah is not a story of intolerance. It is a story of treaties honored, warnings issued, justice upheld, and decisive action taken only when necessary. It shows us that Islamic leadership is not reactionary. It is principled, measured, rooted in accountability. Medina did not become strong by force alone, but by ethics that refused to bend. And that may be the hardest kind of strength of all.